Hi and welcome to Thriver TV, the place to break free from narcissistic abuse with quantum tools and understandings. So today's Thriver TV show is about the 6 reasons why you can't stop the abuse. And this is only 6, there's many more, but I really want to share with you 6 of the major reasons. So we can easily think, well, the answer to that, Melanie, would be really, really logical, that if I can stop the abuser doing what they're doing to me, or if they can be incarcerated or they can be held accountable, well, then that's going to stop the abuse. But that framework really is about trying to get things outside of us and other people to change in order for our life to change, which renders us waiting and powerless and helpless, and it's often incredibly fruitless. And that's why I wanted to talk about these 6 reasons. So the first reason is so if we have a look at these 6 reasons, I'm just looking at my board and there was like these eyes and then 6 reasons. It was sort of like 006 instead of 007, and then I realized that it was me saying, let's look at this. I think this might be the early onset of menopause, but that's okay. So, and my eyes are getting worse and the writing's getting smaller because there's a lot in these 6 points. Anyway, bear with me. You know I've got a board, the secret's out, it's fine. So number 1, understanding number 1, and number 1 is all about abusing ourselves, and the main way that we can abuse ourselves is when we get stuck in that whole thing about blame and shame. And when we're saying, well, what happened to me was terrible and abusers are evil and that's shocking and all of that sort of thing. And blame and shame are really toxic emotions. They have us very much pointed at wrong town. And whenever we're doing blame and shame, what happens is we're withholding love and healing and development from ourselves, because with our emotional orientation we can only have one focus at any one time. We can't be doing resentment and love simultaneously. And then people can say, well, how on earth am I going to become a vibration of love? How on earth am I going to start feeling emotions of love when I've been so traumatized and I've been so hurt? And of course you can't. This is not what this is about. But once we start focusing enough love onto ourselves to let go of fruitlessly trying to force or change something we've got no power over, and when we put the attention back into going to our own inner traumas and loving ourselves enough to be able to heal them and up-level them, well, then that's a vibration of love that is then going to start creating piece by piece more love in your life, a platform of love and healing and development in your life. Whereas a focus the other way on the resentment of what happened to you is only going to create more of that. And it's really, really toxic. It's like that saying where people say it's like taking poison and expecting the other person to drop dead. That is so true. Resentment and blame is all about toxicity. And the more toxic we become with it, the sicker we get. And we don't get accountability, and we don't get new lives, and we don't get to get up and out of a narcissistic abuse experience at all. It's like being bogged in a pit and you're putting your foot down on the accelerator and you're just bogging your car in deeper. That's all that happens with that. So reason 2 is about realizing that we need to be a self-generative adult in our body rather than a wounded child. And if we're unconsciously motivated by our wounds to try to get love, approval, survival and security from somebody else, well, then what we're going to do is we're going to connect with people that are also empty, that are trying to get their fulfillment and their sense of self from somebody else. So what happens is we end up in a toxic relationship, which is a dance of let's struggle over power, Let's struggle over the commodities of love, approval, survival and security and what I am or I'm not getting from you. And rather than a partnership, we end up with a war zone. And that's what toxic relationships are. And absolutely, narcissistic and codependent relationships are the height of that lesson. Because we're now living in a time of evolving consciousness where relationships are needing to move towards mutuality, respect, teamwork, partnership, and oneness, rather than separation and division. We're coming out of relationships that used to come together for the reasons of codependent survival. I need you for that, you need me for that. So we're coming out of those into co-generative interdependence, co-creation together. That's what empowered new paradigm relationships look like. And the old paradigm relationships of survival, fear, and dependencies can't exist anymore. So for all of us, what we're needing to do, this 50 years is the massive changeover period that's changing the whole paradigm of relationships from the last 5,000 years. We're in the muck-up time where we're really having to find a new way to source and be relationship, to create healthy relationship. So all of us are growing out of the dependency wounding of our ancestors in order to become healthy, whole, solid people that can actually generate healthy, whole, real, mutual, loving, connected oneness, evolved relationships that work, that are interdependent relationships, which are two people coming together to share love, approval, survival and security, rather than coming in empty trying to get it from each other. So I hope that makes a lot of sense. That's so important, reason number 2. So reason number 3 is we don't realize that life is signaling us through our emotions. So what happens is we stay stuck in our head and we stay stuck in all of the justifications and the reasons and all of our strategies and all of the beliefs. Well, I'm intelligent, I'm strong, I'm being able to make other things work in my life. I can nut this out, I can solve this, despite our emotions screaming at us, ripping us to shreds that something is horribly, horribly wrong. And within this abuse community, it is really common that there are so many intelligent, high-functioning people that have been very capable of strategizing and being strong and intelligent enough to work out their lives. Yet when they've come to narcissistic abuse, all of that gets turned on its head. And the reason is because narcissistic abuse is not a logical cognitive trip. It's a deep, deep soul lesson where we've got to come out of our heads and we've got to come into our bodies and into our hearts to self-partner with our emotions and realize that who we are is not what we think. Who we are is our emotional composition and the state of our emotions and our belief systems at any given time. So we're coming out of this massive disconnection from ourselves, which is what we do when we're logical. Because when we're being logical and cognitive about everything, we're only guessing. We're making up stories. A lot of them are very false stories. We usually look to the outside and we get that to make sense, to fulfill what's happening with our inner belief systems. And because our stories are always positioned around our wounds if we're not healthy and flowing on any given topic. So, and then of course, life just keeps generating with us more evidence that our mind goes, well, see, I was right about that. And they're all of the false stories that we're living that we don't live when we actually come inside and self-partner and start becoming emotionally awakened and emotionally intelligent. And that's what narcissistic abuse always is. So we didn't realize that our emotions are fundamentally our GPS. They're the signal that's guiding us, and when they're painful and traumatized, that's telling us that we're drastically off track, no matter what our brain would like to think about it. And when, we're feeling healthy and whole and we feel really calm and at peace and we're not obsessing with things, it's because we're aligned on those topics. But we were taught with our GPS to ignore it, to shut it up, to numb it out, to medicate it away, to ignore it in every shape and form. And all of us paid a terrible price with that, not just with narcissistic abuse, with anything in our life where we're ignoring our emotional state on it. And narcissistic abuse showed us that in massive technicolor, the price that we pay, which is significant when we're not partnered and listening to our truth, which is our emotional self. So that's our third reason. Number 4, the fourth reason I want to talk about today is when we have a focus on our material well-being rather than our soul well-being. And this is a big lesson in narcissistic abuse, and it's one that I've seen play out so many times, and it played out in my own life. Is that a lot of our programming can be very fearful, and it can be about scarcity and survival and security. And again, we don't listen to our soul truths and our emotions and what they're doing. So what we can do is we can be sourcing life the way our society and our world has taught us to, which is it is about the bricks and mortar and about the superannuation plan, and it's about making sure that the kids have a particular lifestyle and they have access to certain things that security and money can buy. And what we might do is we might forego all of our emotional and soul well-being because we're not realizing that our soul has one agenda, and that is to evolve and to develop and grow towards love and out of fear and separation into love and wholeness, wholesomeness and oneness. And that's the evolution from a mind-based, outer-based reality to a soul-based, inner-based generative experience of wanting to grow ourselves. And if we're not listening to our emotions and we're materially focused, we're not growing ourselves. And I've seen many people hang on, ironically, usually and often losing everything with the trip with narcissists rather than coming out of it well. And yet I've seen people let go, take the risk, align, work on their inner beings and get quite good settlements. And I've even seen people that have had to run with nothing, who've ended up in shelters, who today, as a result of honouring their soul, life conspired with them and joined them to support them and grant them everything they needed. And these people are now living soul purpose, they're living a true life, they've created true love, they've created true abundance. They're now on their soul missions and their purpose because these people are aligning with exactly the reason why their soul is having this experience in a human body, which is to honour its soul truth and to also express our deepest contributions to life, the planet and others. That's the reason why we're here. That's the soul purpose. When we're living with a narcissist and we're getting smashed and we're living a false self, when our emotions are screaming at us and telling us that it's wrong, we're not in soul purpose. We're in no sort of emotional composition to be able to generate our deepest truths and contributions to life, others, and this planet at all. And it's so interesting that the research has been done on this. There is nobody on their deathbed who talks about the joys of how many mansions or Porsches they had or how many hot people they got to have sex with. That stuff is completely irrelevant for people on their deathbed. What generally happens for people that had stuff and didn't connect to love of life, love of self and others, and connection and deep contributions, have huge regret. They realise that they didn't live in alignment with their soul truth at all. And the people that did do those things, that's the joys and that's the peace and that's the well-being they have on their deathbed of, you know, I gave it my best. I came down and I did what I was meant to do. We all have that waiting for us. It is not living a false life, assigning somebody else as your source of love, security, survival, and hanging in there for material things while you're getting smashed to pieces. And for the people that think that it's doing their child a favor, I promise you, as a healer who's worked on countless people, one-on-one and in huge group situations, that the parents stayed together, a narcissist and a codependent for survival and security, these adults have such wounded children within them as a result of growing up in that environment. They would have been much better off without the security and with a parent, one parent, that demonstrated soul truth to them and soul living to them. That's how they would have got healthy. So I really hope that's helped you really think about it. So reason number 5 is that we can have very strong beliefs about right and wrong, otherwise known as judgment. And when we're stuck in judgment, which a lot of doctrines have and a lot of denominations can have, what we really believe is that if we've been wronged, we can't be right unless the wrongdoer is brought to justice. We don't believe that we can be right unless wrong people that have hurt us are somehow made right. And we righteously hook in. We scream, that was wrong, from the rooftops, and we'll scream it out to anybody who listens, and we'll create groups about it and forums about it, and we'll scream out about it. And yet we're not getting better. We don't get better. And what we actually haven't realised is that it's not going to work, trying to force wrong people to be right. And the only thing that we do have the power to change is the wrong feelings in our body, which is the traumas, which is the faulty emotional programs that have been deeply triggered, that our only power is to make them right, to be able to release them, heal them, and up-level them to something so much healthier. That's, and we realise that wrong and right are really ridiculous judgments when we're looking outwards. And life is not about wrong or right. That's incredibly subjective anyway. It's simply about what does serve us or what doesn't serve us, what is a soul truth and what isn't a soul truth, and making the adjustments to be able to live in ways that are healthy with a soul truth. So the last one, which is number 6, is we are showing up in ways in life with others that create and generate more of the wounding and more of the abuse. So an example of that is we're on the lookout everywhere for narcissists. We're like, oh my God, you know, he or she said that and could do that. Does that mean that's a narcissist? Or, oh my God, she's got that look in her eyes. They go a bit dull. Maybe she's a narcissist. And we can go on and on and on. And we're paranoid about it, you know. And we don't realize that being on this lookout for the things that have wounded us, we haven't resolved the wounding in our body. We're on the lookout for keeping ourselves safe from more of it. And we don't realize that what happens is we are continually attracting these people in. We're going to connect up with them. We're going to make excuses for them, and we're going to make relationships with them. The pattern's just going to go on and on and on and on. Esther Hicks did this lovely skit that I really enjoyed. And it was about being in the cosmic kitchen, and there were people in the cosmic kitchen, and they have every ingredient available to be able to make their pie. Every ingredient you could imagine. And there was somebody there making their pie, and they said, I don't want garlic in my pie. And they're like, well, just don't put it in. And they're going, yeah, but it's in the cupboard. It's in the cupboard. Get it out of the cupboard. Get it out of the house. I don't want garlic anywhere. I don't want garlic in my pie. They're going, well, just don't put it in your pie. Don't focus on it. Put all your energy on all your other beautiful ingredients. Just, what garlic? Forget about it. No, it's here. I could get my pie. And anyway, the pie was created, it was cooked, and it was full of garlic. And that analogy is so perfect. Everything exists in the world, from the most evil narcissistic person to the most beautiful Mother Teresa saint. Where is your energy? Where is your focus? How are you creating yourself? How are you showing up in life? What are your belief systems? Because that's what you're going to put in your pie. So being defensive, paranoid, on the lookout, which is what people are doing when they're reading up more and more and more about narcissists, and they're joining abuse forums, and they're wanting to protect themselves and spot them from 100 paces and all of those things. They're just putting them in their pie constantly. It doesn't work. Also too, when we're still wounded children in our body, when we haven't up-leveled and healed our original faulty beliefs and traumas, we are going to show up within the defenses of those traumas. So when we expect to be ignored, or we expect to be abandoned, or we expect to be unloved, we're going to be defensive. We're going to be cagey. We're not going to be coming from our heart. We're not going to be our warmest, truest, highest self. We're going to be showing up in ways that put people off, that don't want them to, they don't want to connect with us, or they're going to want to leave our space. Or maybe we're going to be needy and clingy, and we're going to try too hard. You know, there's an old saying, desperation is the worst cologne. And maybe that's going to push people away from us. Or maybe what we're going to do at the sign of any trouble is we're going to deliver the first preemptive strike. We're going to get in first. We're going to leave and abandon people before they can do it to us. And what all of this means is we're not healthy adults in our own body. We're not showing up having true, honest conversation. We're not getting things clarified. We're not putting our best foot forward. We're not asking for our needs to be met healthily. So we're not in a space where we love ourselves enough yet, and where we're developed enough in ourselves that we're going to be able to create and generate healthy relationship with other growing, evolving people. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to be 100% healthy, but we're going to be able to generate relationship with other people who are also evolving and growing, and have, you know, possibly had quite good grounding and foundations in their childhood, or otherwise they've done a lot of work on themselves. And there's a ton of these people out there. There's a ton of really good, amazing human beings that are into evolution, or naturally quite solid and able to do healthy relationship. Not everybody's damaged and beyond repair, truly. So, you know, we start to really understand that there's a huge amount of responsibility that we can take. And if we're not taking that responsibility to grow and evolve and develop ourselves, well, then we expect somebody else to take the responsibility for it. But what happens is we're not going to get people coming into our lives that are whole and the saviors of our wounds. They're actually people that just bring us more evidence of our wounds, which is what narcissistic abuse is on a massive scale. It's that massive wake-up call where we go, you know what? We can't go on like this. We really have got to have a look at this stuff, and we've got to do something about it. So, as I said at the start, that's 6 reasons why we can't stop being abused, or be in abuse cycles, or abusing ourselves with the toxic emotions and depressions and anxieties that we're just not getting out of, even if we've left abusers behind. So that's 6 reasons. There's lots of others, and I go through lots of others and workshop with lots of others in my 3 keys groups. So, and they're always ongoing. Another one's just opened up now, and I'd love you to join me, because this last group that just went through, the progress, the acceleration, the evolution, the healing that happened in 2.5 weeks was incredible. And a lot of these people had tried everything to get well before this. So please join me. So that's it from me until next week. And as always, keep healing, keep smiling, keep thriving, because there's nothing else to do. Lots of love. Bye-bye.